as you know, we're really short on time, so I'm going to just get right to the point and introduce to you Dr. Steve Cox, who is the Home and Community Facilities branch chief.
All right, can everybody hear me? All right, okay. All right, so this will be short and brief because that's what we do at the state. Short and brief to the point because we've got more things to do. So I did want to recognize that I noticed that I'm at first thing in the morning and the happy hour is late. Is that so you can digest everything and then, okay, just kidding. Well, good morning. Thank you for inviting me here. I appreciate being here. I recognize some faces from the CHCA conference that I did a couple weeks ago, a month ago, I don't remember. So we'll go ahead and jump right into this.
1 second, Steve.
Yeah.
So we have note cards on the table. If you have questions, will you write them down? And Janet and Rachel are going to come around and pick those up from you so that we can try to moderate that Q&A time so we can get the most out of that. So any questions you have, there's note cards for that.
So here's something that I'm going to ask. The PHO just came out yesterday. There is an educational thing on Friday at 1 o'clock. Please hold your questions for that because I'm still reading through the late email that I got, and there's still more coming out. So there'll be some mitigation guidance that comes out this week as well. But really the guidance that you're going to receive on Friday is pretty clear. It's probably the best guidance we've given over the last couple of years because we're right there with you. The guidance that we get from CDC, from CMS, from all of the other different organizations, it's been really difficult to figure out priorities and who needs to know what and when they need to know things. So bear with us, but I will do my best to answer questions about COVID today. But again, they're having that Zoom on Friday at 1 o'clock. So, all right, I found this little video on the internet. Don't regret knowing the people that come into your life. Good people give you happiness. Bad ones give you experience. The worst ones give you lessons. And the best ones give you memories. One thing about my little presentations when I go around is just everything that I deal with, not everything, but a lot of the things I deal with are negative. So I try to instill positive in some of my presentations. Resilience is accepting your new reality, even if it's less good than the one you had before. You can fight it. You can do nothing but scream about what you've lost. Or you can accept that and try to put together something that's good. I think there's one more. Life is amazing, then it's awful. And then it's amazing again. And in between the amazing and the awful, it's ordinary and mundane and routine. Breathe in the amazing, hold on through the awful, and relax and exhale during the ordinary. That's just living a heartbreaking, soul-healing, amazing, awful, ordinary life. And it's breathtakingly beautiful. All right, uplifted, positive. Now we go. All right, so this was quarter 1 and quarter 2, so that would be January through August, I think, maybe July. This is the number of ALR facility counts in Colorado, a grand total of 691. And the various types are on there, the ALR, ALR ACF, ALR RTF, ALR BSL. These were the open and close accounts. Now I can only go through quarter 1. Quarter 2 had not been put in. And I think you guys are going to give these to your members, right? So, yeah, they've got the slides. So, just to save you trying to take pictures or if I click too fast. So in quarter 1 of this year, there were 9 closes and 5 openings. So you can see quite the difference amongst the quarters of the last 2 years. All right, for ALR only, citation types. I'm sorry about the colors. In some places it works really good, other places it doesn't look good. So, 540, which is the administrative duties, almost all of the testing, COVID, those type of citations were in this. And this was cited 117 times. 310 is specific to COVID-19, reporting vaccine 2 times a month, 69 times. Med administration orders, it was cited 60 times. Resident care services, resident agreement, 44 times. Resident care services, fall management, it was cited 33 times. COVID-19 policy and procedure to encourage the booster, cited 24 times. Med and med administration record keeping, 23 times. Med administration quarterly audit, 22 times, which is interesting because that's right now the only requirement of your QMP is to do the medication audit. So, personnel criminal history, 21 times, and then conditional license, 20 times. So we'll go over ALR and ACF top citations. They're pretty close. Administration duties, 540. Again, a lot of it is the testing, vaccination, no PPE in your facilities being used. That was cited 90 times. COVID-19 reporting vaccine rates 2 times a month, 47 times. Resident care services, resident agreement, 31 times. ACF, provisional med administration, 31 times. Conditional license, 29 times. PNP, encouraging the booster, 22 times. Med administration with orders, 20 times. COVID-19, protecting the unvaccinated, 18 times. COVID-19 exemption list, 16 times. And then the conditional license, 20 times. All right, so scope and severity. When we look at the citations that come in for the ALR surveyors, we look at scope and severity of the citations themselves. If you'll look, the light, well, it's kind of a darker green. That's a level A tag, which was cited 12.48%. Level B is a little bit more severe, but nowhere near the C, D, and E. And that was cited the majority of the time at 71.76%. Your red is when we're starting to get into harm or potential harm. That was cited 5.49%. Your E level tags, which is 9.08%. So I'm going to put this out here right now because this is something that we're seeing almost on a daily basis. The rules state you must have at least one staff member in your building 24/7 who is CPR certified. That certification must come from a nationally recognized organization. I know that folks are seeing it. There's a lot of companies throwing this stuff up online to go out and take these courses. They are not legitimate courses. I've been a nurse for 22 years. I cannot tell online if somebody is performing CPR correctly. Those are not legitimate certifications. So we're citing it almost daily because it's not that facilities don't have anybody, it's that the shifts that we're going out there isn't a CPR certified person, or the shifts over the weekend, somebody hasn't been certified. So it's really important. So people go, well, okay, in my building I have all DNRs. The problem is the regulation states CPR and obstructive airway. DNR does not prevent care being given to somebody who's choking. If you're choking, you need to protect that person and see if you can possibly free that airway, open the airway. So that's why it's being cited at the levels it's being cited at, and it has nothing to do with the DNR. ALR, ACF, scope and severity, it's pretty much the same kind of percentages. Complaints. Now, Janet's going to go with a group later and talk about complaints. So the complaints are going to be a little bit different because this was about a month ago, and I sent her newer data on complaints, the top 5 complaints. So, quality of care and treatment, there were 343 complaints. This is from January to August. Resident patient client rights, 60 complaints. Dietary services, 46 complaints. Physical environment, 44 complaints. Unqualified personnel, 36 complaints. State licensure, 32 complaints. Resident patient client neglect, 17 complaints. Resident, patient, client abuse, 14 complaints. Administrative personnel, 13 complaints. Admission, discharge, and transfer rights, 13 complaints. The allegations that were found as being substantiated: state licensure, 87.50%. So state licensure is you didn't renew in time, you didn't pay your fees in time, you didn't pay any fines or any conditional license issues were not taken care of in time. So that's what that falls under. Infection control, I don't think I need to explain that, but if you want me to, I'm more than happy to. But that was substantiated 83.3% of the time. Other services is a wide array. It has all kinds of different things. Resident, patient, client abuse, 57%. Administrative and personnel, 53%. Unqualified personnel, 47%. Quality of care and treatment, 34%. And I did not round up, so. This is just a little bit of information about my ALR section. Now, I also oversee home care and hospice. So I've got a pretty big group for the state of Colorado. So for assisted living, my section has 21 staff. That's from D, who's the manager, all the way down to all of the surveyors. At this time, I have 2 openings. There are 5 new staff in training. We did start this year a new off-site QMP survey, and really what we're looking at, over the last couple of years, the QMP has not really been looked at closely. Well, it's time. It's in the regulations, and I will be the first person to tell you that QMP is not as hard as people make it. It really isn't. The quality management program should be the backbone of your program. That's where you're looking at, what are we not doing right? What are we not doing to protect our residents? What are we not doing to protect our staff? These are the backbones of what you should be looking at. Quality management program, I have some folks who come to me with 20 performance improvement projects. That's impossible. Nobody can do that many PIPs. And really, right now, the regulations only state you got to do that med audit. But we want you to do more. The residents want you to do more. So we want you to look at, are we getting our medications to our residents on time? Are we getting them to the dining hall? Are we getting them the recreation they deserve? Are they getting the services that are in their care plans? Are they getting to their physicians? All of those various things. And really, I simplify the QMP by looking at it like this. What's the problem? How do I find the problem? Who noticed the problem? Who am I going to bring together to help work on a plan for the problem? What are we going to do to fix this? Once we put it in place, how are we going to implement it? Once implemented, how are we going to monitor it? Once the monitoring has occurred, have we failed or have we succeeded? If we succeeded, we want to continue, but that may not need to be a PIP for next year. I fixed it. I want to keep it on my radar, but I fixed it. So I want to move on to something else. Everybody on this globe has something to fix. Nobody's perfect. So look at what you have going on in your facility and look at what's going to affect that resident in a safety and welfare manner that we can make better. So really, in a nutshell, that's the QMP program. It really doesn't have to be this scientific research, all of these datas and spreadsheets and all of these people. It doesn't have to be that. And if you're having problems with your QMP, reach out to us. It's always best to reach out to us before it becomes an issue or before we find it that it's an issue. So, all right. We are always looking at our survey process. So me coming over for home care and hospice is a little bit of a different survey process because we also have the CMS side of the house that we deal with in home care and hospice. So we look at things a little bit different over there, but we're starting to incorporate some of those ideas into how we do our survey in the ALR industry. So those processes are always being looked at. I bring the team together and we talk about what went well, what didn't go well, what are facilities having issues with. It almost seems that across the board in surveying, it doesn't matter what kind of facility, the hardest thing is getting us the documents that we ask for in a timely manner. You know, if I ask you for something, I don't expect you to just, oh, I knew you were coming, here you go. We don't expect that. we expect, it's going to take a little bit of time, especially now since a lot of administrators are actually working the floor. A lot of your office folks are helping out and doing things in there. So we don't want to pull you away from that, but we still have to do our job to make sure that you're doing your job. So when we do ask for those documents, we really like to get them in a timely manner. We've already started the stakeholder meetings, so we've got another one. I think it's next week. Yes? I don't know. My calendar is so ugly, I don't even like to look at it. But they tell me that when I have to be there, so that's a good thing. Please get involved. You're the stakeholders. You're the folks that are going to help us with these rules. You're the folks that have to live by the rules, and we're the ones that have to regulate them, and we have to work together as a team to put these all together. So be a part of it. If you have questions, there are, during the stakeholder meetings, Francine gives you the email address of who to reach out to. There's so many of us working on this that we don't want the email to go to just one, so there's a group email that we can look at and try and answer those questions. So be involved. All right. Hit me with them.
I will ask the first question, and then I'll bring the mic around and you guys can start to ask your own. I know that Janet and Rachel are also picking up the note cards. But I'll ask the first question, and it kind of dovetails on your comment about the first aid and CPR. Is there a way that when you guys start to see a trend, so I would say concerning as the first aid CPR, especially because a lot of us are struggling to see what sites are authentic, which ones aren't. Have people that were CPR and first aid certified during COVID when they weren't doing in-person checkoffs, that now we need to go back and audit our records, and if someone hasn't done an in-person checkoff to get them back in to do that. Can you guys start putting that on the portal? What we find is that it just kind of starts to go through the grapevine and we all start talking to each other, but meanwhile, none of us here want to get a higher level deficiency. We all strive for that, and I think, is there a way you guys might be able to do that? Just, hey, a tidbit, we're noticing this, and really start vetting your providers.
Yes, the answer easily is yes, but just like every one of you, everyone is inundated with emails. Everybody's inundated with messages. And what we don't want to do is bombard everybody with messages. So yes, we can put that out. But we are going to keep it to a minimum, just not to bombard everybody. Now, having said that, we do have the website that we're working on, and part of our goal is once we get that technical guidance website for assisted living facilities, we are going to add those to the website. We're also looking at a quarterly addition to top citations and top complaints, adding that. Now, the technical guidance website will not be somewhere where you can email in questions, because we're not going to have somebody monitoring that site every day or every week or maybe even every month, to be honest with you. But we will be updating the website probably quarterly. So if you do have those specific questions, then please reach out to Dee, Rita, or myself regarding those questions. But we are going to put that information in that website. And we're really, really pushing to have it up and ready by December. I just don't know. With all the stakeholder meetings we've got going on right now, it's just really, time is really a constraint.
Thank you.
I know you were asking about timely documents, so that brought up a question for me. Do you mind if we do electronic documentation on a thumb drive to you, or do you prefer that we provide you paper documents as you're coming on site?
Me personally, since I have dealt with agencies where I've actually had to bring back 27 boxes of paper, the thumb drive is an awesome tool. And actually, I will be issuing each of my staff a thumb drive. So they will have one. Now, everybody can't do it. Everybody doesn't have the capability. So it's not something we're ever going to mandate. But yes, yes, anything that can be given to us electronically is much preferred over paper, because once we get it, we are the custodians of those documents, and we have to keep them for 7 years. So yes, anything electronic is much preferred.
Okay, I have a question off of one of the cards. A food handler's certificate, is a food handler's certificate necessary to carry plates to residents?
You know what, I'm going to be totally honest with you. I would have to go back and read the regulation. I don't know that specifically. I don't know the answer to that.
So that's being asked for the deficiency for that.
Is there a way whoever could email me, and I would be more than happy to respond to that.
Thank you. The question was, is it required to get do you need to get a food handler certificate in order to carry a plate to a resident? That was the question. And then when we find the answer, we'll send it all out to you guys as well.
Hi, I have a question around the QMP. We recently had a survey, and we have an electronic care plan system where we can extract data. And the particular surveyor, I think, was more of a paper preference person, so they kind of wanted all of that kind of contained in one packet instead of us being able to extract like real-time data, with a date range to provide it. So, I mean, I feel like that's kind of a difference of opinion in terms of like, we don't have enough data, but we didn't have the data, in the QMP, but it's easily extractable so that, we can attach it at any point in time.
Okay?
So, I mean, is that a problem? Like, if they come back with a deficiency, can we say, hey, like, we have the data, right, around the different areas of risk? It's just, we don't keep it together because we extract it, real time as we go along.
Sure.
From the system.
Sure, and that's one of the nuances of computerized anything. So one of the things that we found and I'm going to jump from ALR to home care a couple of years ago, is that surveyors were going in and they were asking, I'll say 10 items. And a particular agency spent all day trying how to figure out how to get all of those 10 items into one document. Now, if you've ever formatted different programs, that doesn't work well. But we didn't know that they were doing that. So it was after the survey, and the agency actually IDR'd us, which you all have a right to do, and I encourage you to do that, which is what I would tell you to do, is if you felt that you were being cited on QMP for not providing enough data, but you have the data, IDR it and prove it, and it will be taken away from your citation, the discrepancy list. So one thing I found is that my surveyors have a tendency to ask for things, but they ask in such a manner that facilities, agencies, think they have to be exactly how the surveyor said, which makes it very difficult. So what I've been doing and what I will continue to work on is when I'm talking to my surveyors, having them describe what they need, but not necessarily how they need it or how it needs to be put together in a package, because it doesn't need to be a package. They need the information that's required in order to look over your documentation, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the way they want it.
Yeah, because they specifically said, we prefer to go with all in a binder. I mean, it's 2022, nothing's going to be in just paper binders.
Right. And that's something that I can talk to my surveyors about. Their preference, I get it. It's easier to just grab a binder, and then that way they can go anywhere and read through it, whereas carrying your computer and trying to scroll through page. And I'll be honest with you, there are so many different EMRs and data collection formats out there. It's not always easiest for us to click through these formats to figure out what you're doing or what the program is. There's some programs that we have so much difficulty with that we literally have to have a staff member or administrator sit right beside us, walk us through each page because we can't find it. Makes sense to you guys, doesn't make sense to us.
And then just going back to the thumb drive, if you guys could set up maybe like going forward a SharePoint site, and then we can just upload all of the documents to that so they have it all in kind of one place, and
That
then
would
organized.
be awesome.
I mean, I think that would be super for you guys and for us.
That would be awesome, but understand that I live under the governor, and the office of, I'll just call them OIT. They own all of our electronics. And the SharePoints we've had in the past have become extreme nightmares because nobody's managing it. I agree with you, it'd be great to have one. Could it happen? Yes. When? I have no idea. But I will take that back to my leadership again because we talk about it on a monthly basis about SharePoint
It's
site.
a lot of time and money.
Sure.
Thank you. Good questions. I'm going to ask one question off the card. Bifocals. How do we document booster encouragements?
How do you get your kids to eat dinner? Any way possible. That's literally, there is no guidance on how to document that you've encouraged it. We spoke with John Smith. John Smith is adamant he is not going to get these boosters on this date at this time. And then we go back and we encourage John Smith to get this booster. Still adamant he's not getting it on this date and this time. That's documenting that you've encouraged the booster. It's as simple as that.
Just a quick comment. SharePoint idea is really great. Unfortunately, SharePoint is going to be discontinued in a few months here by Microsoft. And I kind of echo your sentiment, Steve. I mean, I worked with the OIT in the past, and it's a beast working with them. So I appreciate what you all do electronically.
Thank you. You know what? They're great people. They are great people, and I could never do their job. But I will tell you that trying to figure out how to put, we have over 2,200 facilities and agencies in the state of Colorado that deal with healthcare, that are licensed. Trying to put all of those onto a SharePoint site to dump all their documentation, oh my God, I wouldn't want to work for OIT. But hopefully they will come up with something new that can happen. And you know, you all know as well as I do, computer systems are popping up every day. I mean, I had my computer for years, and for some reason, Microsoft Edge just pops up on my screen one day, and it took over the entire computer. All right, what else?
Next question off the card. How many off-site QMPs have been conducted since June of 2022?
So right now, I don't know the exact number, but I know that we were up to 15. The criteria that we're using for the off-site QMPs are facilities that have not had any enforcement, not have had complaints within the last year, and have been seen within the last 5 years. We had to broaden the criteria because we're just starting this process. But it will be an ongoing process that we continue, and that QMP survey is your survey for that year.
I just wanted to clarify the question about the IDR responses to wonky survey citations. And is there a time frame that's allowed in that we can still submit IDRs, or does that expire?
I think it's 10 days, but I would have to check. It's after the DL has been sent to you. You have 10 days to IDR, but I will clarify that because we actually have another section that handles all of our IDRs. Elaine Sabian handles the IDR process at CDPHE, so I will clarify that.
Okay, another question off the card. Is kitchen manager training a requirement for small assisted living homes?
Great question. Again, I'd have to go back and look at it. I don't know the answer to that one.
Can you specify more on the care services resident agreement deficiencies?
From the last few DLs that I've reviewed, typically they have to do with people who are responsible for their loved ones who are listed in their care plan to be notified if there's a change in condition. If anything in their care plan has changed, they're not being notified. The family members or POAs or responsible individuals, they're not being notified. And we do reach out to those family members, and we do quite a bit extensive investigation outside of the facility when we're looking at complaints. So that's really the main thing with that.
Excellent. Why does CDPHE state right on the homepage, first sentence states, click on CDC transmission levels different than CDPHE-CDC? I'm not sure if I understand the question. Just wanna.
I do. I didn't ask it.
Okay. I'll let her. Okay.
Let her ask it. But I want to ask it.
Okay, so I'm new at this information, but I can tell you, if you look on your CDPHE, on the first sentence, it says, if you need to look up your transmission levels, it says click here, which is your CDC. All of my facilities are all green on the CDC website. If you look at your diagram on CDPHE, we're in red, orange, or yellow. If this first statement on CDPHE says, do this, and you do it, then we're green. You go to your diagram, and we're red, orange, or yellow. Help me out.
Okay, so the why, I can't answer the why. I can tell you, your question is why is it on that page? I don't know, I don't manage the page, so I don't know why it's there, but I will go back and see if that can be changed. Now I do know that when we came out with the RCF mitigation guidance, and we decided that we were going to look at Colorado's outbreak status rather than the CDC page, because we found that the CDC marked a lot of Colorado green.
Correct.
They're not green, just from all of the testing and responses that we've received. So we made the decision that we were going to notify facilities that they needed to look at our webpage to look at where they were at in the outbreak. Now, originally, it did the exact same thing that you're saying. It went straight to CDC's page. We had it fixed where when you clicked on it, it would go to Colorado's and you could see it, but obviously it reverted back. So,
yes, and it's very obvious because you can put in the CDC website the counties that you're looking at, and it does come up green. So there's misinformation,
okay.
because I know we're instructed to go to your site, but it states right in your page that the two should be equal, and they're not.
Okay, and they never have been equal.
I have the answer.
Oh, go ahead.
I talked to the resident care strike team. I asked that in one of our bi-monthly calls or whatever. So it's a setting on there. So, and I can hold that off and show you where it is. You have to switch. There's like a transmission level and another one, and it defaults to the wrong one. So then you pick the other one, and that's what you have to go at.
And what I asked the strike force to do was change their link on that page. Because if they would change the link, because what happens is you have to press that link, it takes you to the community transmission, which is not what we do. And there's this little disclaimer at the top that says, if your health facilities, click this. So then you have to click that. But if you miss that little piece at the very top, then you're not going to get the right numbers. So I asked the strike force to do that in the next update, that when you click it, it takes you to the right page, because it's extremely deceiving and sets us up for struggles.
So let me talk to April Berghoff, who's leading I can't talk today, sorry. I've only had one cup of coffee. So. The RCF strike force, and see if we can put a disclaimer in there, because I don't know if she can fix that internally from a computer standpoint, but we could potentially put a disclaimer in, you need to do this to get to the right page. So I'll see if she can do that.
Thank you. One question off the card. When you are fined for a deficiency, do you pay the fine before you IDR?
I can't answer that. That's your decision.
Actually, I just dealt with it yesterday. Yes, you do pay the fine by the due date. And then
Oh, okay. So the question is do I pay the fine and then IDR? Or is it, you need to stick within the guidelines. If you're issued a fine, you have a deadline to do it. Pay the fine, you can IDR, you win the IDR, then you'll work with the licensing group on that fine. Sorry, I misunderstood that. I thought you were asking me a different question.
I think it's an unrelated question, but we just got an email yesterday from CDPHE saying that surveillance tests is not contingent on vaccination status anymore. Are you aware of it? I was just confused. What does this mean?
You know what, I just read the email last night when it came across, so I'm hoping that they're going to cover that on Friday.
Okay.
Because I know that it's listed in the discussion
Right.
for Friday,
Right.
so I'm hoping that they can actually
Okay.
explain that better.
Okay, thank you.
Because quite honestly, so the RCF group isn't in HFEMSD. So we have to reach out to them for any questions and any clarification. So I'm on email or IM or phone with April pretty much daily to try and get clarification on things. And it's state government, guys.
So in regards to state government, is there, or what causes the inconsistency in surveys and surveyors?
Can you elaborate?
I didn't write the question, okay? I can say personally, I do know that the surveyors kind of mention that, you know, they're all unique, they look at things from different corners of the room, and so sometimes they're going to come through and see things that maybe another surveyor doesn't see. And I know we've all just kind of expressed our concerns because, you know, you feel as if you get a survey, they looked at everything, they spent 2 days with you, you know, you corrected your deficiencies, and then if they come back a year or 2 years later, you haven't changed your process, and then there's something else that is found to be wrong. So we were just kind of, I think we all feel like there might be some inconsistency. But I'll let you elaborate, John.
I don't know that I would call it inconsistencies, as I would call it a difference of opinion or a difference in how they see things. So we'll do a little bit of an experiment with you guys. I want you to, when I say go, turn around and tell me how many signs are on the first row of your vendors in the back. Go.
Are we going to be penalized if we ever do anything?
All right, turn back around. How many do you see?
14.
So what you're showing me, everybody has a difference of what they saw. My surveyors are the same way. They're human. We have checklists. We have forms that we have them fill out. But they all have their own thought processes and their own ways of thinking about things. Now, Jeanette, please.
I think the problem is that it's in their perception. And these are rules and regulations. So how they perceive a rule or a regulation, it shouldn't be a perception. It should be what the reg says. So for instance, I have seen people get IJs for not having CPR on file, and I've seen other people get scope Bs. I've seen other people skate with it. So just being a consultant and seeing all the differences when I'm doing plans of corrections, I think it's really hard. I think there's too much gray, because I understand what you're saying. Look at the signs and see what you see, but these are rules and regulations that we are trying to follow. So I guess the concern is what the survey's perception is compared to what the reg is and what our perception is. So we are going to get a deficiency on what their perception of the rule is rather than what our perception of the rule is. So I think that's a lot of where the confusion comes from.
So I can actually answer your question about the CPR because I'm the one who changed it. Not the rule, but their perception. So when I came in as branch chief, I had some big shoes to fill. And I had a really big hill to climb to learn. So I started looking at things. And I started looking at the CPR citations. And you're right. People were being cited at IJ. They were being cited at B level. And some were being 999. They weren't cited at all. So I went to D and I'm like, What are we doing? And we looked at it. So the rule came out in 2018, and the concept, and all I can do is relay, I can't say why. All I can relay is that the concept is that we wanted to ease facilities into this and get them used to the concept. One of the other things that was also looked at is they didn't read the entire regulation because people were only reading the CPR aspect. They weren't reading the obstructed airway portion because everybody puts together CPR with DNR. CPR with, I don't want to be resuscitated. They didn't look at the obstructed airway. But then Steve came in, and I'm not saying I'm the best, I just noticed it. It was outside eyes looking at it. I'm like, ooh, why are we not looking at this the way we should be looking at it? Now, I will answer the point about perception. CMS, and luckily you guys don't have to do that yet, but CMS actually had to put out interpretive guidelines because people were perceiving them differently. Facilities, agencies, companies were perceiving the rules differently. And we really need to look at, I agree with some of my surveyors are perceiving things their way, and we are actually building a more robust call-in of our surveyors on a daily basis, in that I'm asking more questions. I'm having Dee ask more questions because some of the things that are being cited maybe need to be cited or don't need to be cited, and why are they citing it? And you know, we've had that question, it's only Wednesday, I've had that question 3 times this week. What does this rule truly mean? And sometimes you have to put it up on a board and read it out loud to figure out, oh, we're not regulating to what this rule says. But perception is going to be a big thing. People perceive things differently.
And I think that's where putting it out, once you guys have determined that, putting that out so that we know that's kind of your interpretive guidelines like CMS does, because then we all can go back and do self-audits, change things, because none of us, we're all just trying to do the right thing.
Sure.
Real fast, Steve. On the Q&A or the FAQ that you guys have on your website, which I'll be showing you all later on today, on there, how do you submit those questions without not being, you know, just nobody wants to be anonymous? Yes, because there's a lot, if you guys know, there's an FAQ and there's a lot of generic questions that we all have, and if there's answers that the state has come back to interpret those rules and regulations. So how do people submit those questions and get an answer from the state?
If you want a specific answer about your agency and your issue, email DM myself. We can in turn then, when we go back quarterly to the technical guidance website, we can make it generic. Because we don't want your info out there either. And actually we're not allowed to let your info out there when you have those specific types of things without the DL being posted. So I would prefer that you reach out to Dee or myself with those questions so that we can respond to you directly. And it may take a phone call because I'll be honest with you, emails don't always work. They don't get the point across, they don't get the message across, and there is a perception issue.
Constantly adding to those FAQs though?
Quarterly. Oh, the FAQs that are out right now?
Yes.
I don't know that anybody's adding to those. I don't think anybody is, to be honest with you, because we've been working on this other website, and I know that Dee or myself aren't adding to them, so I don't know who would.
I request out of chapter 2, that's where your Q&P falls. And you know how many times I have to train people on some of the language that's used there? We don't typically use a term called service failure. We don't also call our residents, not clients, you know. So when we do the stakeholder process, that'd be awesome if we could use the terminology that's regularly used in assisted living, not client service failure or whatever that term is in chapter 2.
Yeah, unfortunately, we have to use the terminology that's in the licensure because that was there in place. So we have to mirror them, and it obviously wasn't mirrored. So when chapter 2 opens again, I think it was just done a year or 2 ago. When it opens again, I would suggest all of you be involved with that because you all are licensed And if you want to change that language, that would be great, because then we could actually look at the language in chapter 26, chapter 4, chapter 21, all of them, and try and mirror to one term that fits all type of facilities.
One last question. What is timely manner?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I ask that all the time. When my surveyors call in, they say, well, they didn't give it to me in a timely manner. I'm like, well, what does that mean? What's timely to you? You know, when I was raising my kids, timely meant get your butt up and go do this now. But you also have to realize that you're working. You're doing your job. So if you are the only one on the floor, you can't stop what you're doing to go get a surveyor a document that they want. And for the most part, the surveyors are pretty open to, okay, I get it. Timely is not a good term, but I didn't write it, and I have to try and hold everybody to that. But I do talk to my surveyors often about, you need to take everything into consideration, and you need to look at what the situation is going on when you're asking for things.
Let's give Steve a big...
Oh, wait, before you do that, I want to leave you with, not that, but that.